Good morning, everyone. This is Kendall Askins from Stimulating Minds. Askins stimulates over on all of our social media platforms, joining you another day with another Rethinking Math. And today I want to talk to you guys about mathematical street smarts. So, we live in a country where we have free access to education. It's our right in America. And we have free education up until 12th grade. And then we can even choose to pursue past that 12th grade education with all types of degrees, right? I know people who have double master's degrees, doctorate degrees, all these certificates where we just become consumers, right, of knowledge. Like we have so much access to it that we consume it nonstop. And we train our children and our students to essentially be consumers in the sense of just gaining a bunch of knowledge and taking in a bunch of facts, right? And so as we think about this, it brings to my mind the conversation that we have with book smarts versus street smarts, right? Where you could have someone who is very book smart, who has a lot of knowledge, who's intelligent, who can speak on different topics. But when it comes to common sense, right? Or being in what we call the street, right? Or knowing how to navigate those type of things, they struggle, right? They make decisions that don't really make sense. And that's because the two worlds for them are completely different. And so what I am challenging us to think about is our mathematical street smarts, where we are giving our students so much knowledge mathematically. We want them to understand these concepts. We're teaching them how to add and subtract and all these things. But where is the application coming in, right? And often when we say, oh, real life application, I know more teachers than not, or more educators than not, that will call a real life application putting a student's name in a problem. Or when they're teaching time, they're like, oh, you have to know how to tell time, or you have to know how to count money, or you need to know how to measure if you're baking or if you're cooking. And while those things are very real and they are mathematical concepts, they are such surface level concepts, right? Mathematics is really about problem solving, noticing patterns, being creative, right? And so if we are just giving them information, but not actually teaching them how to apply, how to be a problem solver in a situation they've never seen before, right? What are we really doing? And so I want to encourage you as educators, as parents, as consumers of knowledge, to make sure that your children and your students are mathematically street smart, that they know how to apply. And one of the ways that we can do this in a very controlled environment, right? In a beautifully controlled environment in a classroom, is by giving students problems where they may have all the tools to solve, but they've never seen the problem. So I was notorious for doing this to my students, and they hated it, but they loved me at the same time for it, right? And I stretched them and they became great problem solvers. What I would do is we made teach a concept, go through it, they would get the foundational skills, right? And they would understand, and we would do practice to make sure that they understood the skill and had the skill. And then came time for the application. So then they would get problems that they had never seen before, and problems that I refused to walk them through. And they had to sit with each other and talk and have conversation and figure out, like, how do I take all the skills that I have and apply these skills to this problem? And that is, in essence, what street smarts is. When you are in the street and you have to handle a situation, you have to think, okay, what skills do I have that are going to get me in or out of this situation? And so that's how we need to be thinking about mathematics. If you want to apply to ELA, any subject, honestly, but we're talking about math today. That is how we want to be thinking about it, right? We want to think about how are we developing our students so that they are able to look at a problem they've never seen before and pull in the skills that they know they have and begin to attack and solve that problem. We do not want children that just can regurgitate information and just give the information back to us. We want children that can think beyond, because that is where the innovation comes in. That is where the creative space comes in. And that is how our students are going to begin to be able to push our society forward. So let's make sure that these kids are mathematically street smart. Let's hear some examples below of maybe some areas where you demonstrated some mathematical street smarts and you didn't even realize it, or maybe a way that you are going to begin to have your students implement some mathematical street smarts or some street smarts in whatever subject you teach. I can't wait to hear it. If this video was inspiring for you, make sure you like, comment, share it out, subscribe so you don't miss any of our content. And I will see you guys back here next week for another Rethinking Math. Bye.